Hi, I'm Darcy Stockdale.
I'm Madeline Thomas.
And we're talking about the Victorian Youth Strategy Forum. Could you, I was there, but for those of you who missed it, could you just give us a rundown of what actually happened on the day? What were the activities? What were the standouts? Who was the audience?
The event was made up of about 150 participants from across the government, youth sector and also young people. And it was split up into two different phases of the day where we had the narrative boards, which was about talking about each of the priorities, kind of zoning in on them. And that was facilitated by the VYC members. They had each had their own priority that they were to talk to, and it was kind of asking wider questions pertaining to that particular priority. And then the second phase of the day was a little bit more interactive and fun, where we had a aspiration wall and people wrote hope notes. So essentially notes to kind of show what their hopes were for the future in pertaining to the different priorities as well, but this was a little bit more broad. People could also have a little bit more of a creative input outside of the priorities.
How else were young people involved in the event?
Yeah, so the VYC, or Victorian Youth Congress, were really key in the development of this event. So they came on prior to the day, and I ran a co-design session to help develop the activities that we had on the day. But they also were pretty much all the key roles. So facilitators, MCs, they really made the day flow. So couldn't have done it without them.
And maybe for those who did miss it, what is your biggest takeaway from the event?
How great young people are. I was really inspired, to be honest, with all the different... It was really hard to condense down all the amazing ideas from the co-design session into 2 activities. I think it could have been a multi-day event with some of the ideas that came out. So yeah, it was really inspiring to have that co-design session with young people and to see them take the brief and really run with it and have so many different ideas. Did you see that on the day as well? What was your insight on the activities?
Yeah, the activities were really cool, and I think the collaboration between sector workers and young people was really cool. I found that a lot of young people, not even on purpose, but they just ended up being with sector workers, and sector workers were asking some questions that maybe they just wanted the answers to. But it gave the young people first-hand input as well. You know, when you have people who work with young people, talking to young people, they have the opportunity to ask them questions that directly impact the work that they are doing. For that feedback loop to be so quick in that event as well,
yeah.
For them to be able to take that away and say, okay, well, I'm going to implement this literally in my hours today. You know, I think that's really, really cool.
And that was actually quite a large portion of the feedback that we got after the event, was that it was so great to have that cross-sector, young people, sector workers dialogue throughout the day. And I think a lot of people actually continued that dialogue beyond the event as well.
Also having council representatives and government representatives in the room and maybe taking the badge off for the day and just having a chat instead of having an official speech written. They're just roaming around the room and actually, having young people see that these people in government are actually just people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's so important because it's really easy to lose touch with when you refer to the government. A lot of people just see it as this big kind of Goliath of an organisation, when in reality it's made up by a lot of different really hardworking, amazing people who are there because they want to make positive change. And I think it's really important to have events like this so that people do have names to faces to names. They're seeing the people who are on the ground doing the hard work, and vice versa. The VYC members and a lot of the young people who were in attendance on the day were also working really hard on community-based projects, and that's really important for the government to see as well. The government with all the small people of the government, not the big scary one.
Yeah. Obviously we've heard about the activities on the day and who was in attendance, but what made this forum different to a lot of other forums that are happening in the youth sector?
Yeah, so I think with my experience in forums and the kind of traditional format, they can be quite hierarchical and quite regimented. Whereas this one, it was really based in kind of collaboration, shared dialogue, and really just breaking those barriers down.
Yeah.
Did you, as a young person in attendance, did you feel that it was quite a more accessible and approachable space?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of talking in a good way.
We all love to yap. Honestly, probably shouldn't say this out loud. I didn't look at who was coming prior to it. It was on the day, and then people were introducing themselves, and I was like, oh, actually, I do know of you. That's great. I didn't realise that you were coming on the day.
Yeah, I actually knew like quite a few people in attendance, which is also pretty cool. Like as a young person, a lot of the times when you are a young person in social impact, you're working with a lot of companies. And so it's really cool to see that like almost every company that I had worked with was like in the room. I was like, these people really, really care.
Yeah, it's really interesting coming from like academia and lecturing and education and being more exposed in the youth sector. I definitely have noticed that is quite the tone across the board, is that people care about systems change. They really do want to create better futures, to break down the current barriers and systems that are stopping that from happening. Yeah. And it is really inspiring, such a great sector to be in.
And it is also really cool to say that we were both a part of that.
I know! Bonding.
Yeah, to say that we played a role in an event that helps us go towards system change and lasting system change.
And I think this goes beyond youth sector, all these things that we are like imagining and wishing for to change for young people benefits everyone.
Yeah.
Who's going to be not benefited from better education, better access to public transport, which was one of the biggest feedback points that we had.
That was the biggest thing.
Yeah, better access to public transport, especially out in regional areas. Yeah. More transparency in how strategies that government have in place are actually being implemented. These are all things that are so beneficial for every single person, not just young people. It was great to see that all these ideas that young people have for this youth strategy are actually, in large, just systematic change for the benefit of everyone.
That's one of the main things when talking to young people, is that we've grown up with these sort of systems, but we haven't gotten used to them. And so, of course, when we come into these spaces, we're like, I don't really like that.
I mean, I think millennials were really the first to have that experience of these social contracts of like, you do these things, you get education, you'll be able to buy a house, blah, blah, blah. All these things have been kind of broken, and millennials were like the first ones that are like kind of bumbling around being like, what the hell is happening? And then younger people are coming in and being like, no. Actually, that's not how this works. I can see a better future if we implement these different changes. So it was like rooting for you. Millennials, I'm like, please make things accessible again.
Yeah.